a los cuatro vientos quiero gritarle te quiero y lo reconozco que vivir sin ti no puedo. Me abrazo a mi almohada a ver si me da consejo. Dice que lo olvide y olvidarlo yo no puedo. Y a los cuatro vientos quiero gritarle te quiero y lo reconozco que vivir sin ti no puedo. Me abrazo a mi almohada a ver si me da consejo. Dice que lo olvide y olvidarlo yo no puedo. Y ahora que ya estoy harta de decirte y que me dejes con la palabra, por eso todo el mundo se equivoca. Ay, esta sabanita.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to essentially the final episode of this Tea Talk mini-series discussing Hisoka's mother's Nen education. We are going to be talking about today pretty much Nen's actual connection to the spirituality elements that we have discussed earlier. You're going to see how that actually implements together. You're also going to see that how that applies to Hisoka's life later in his childhood, even after his mother passed away. So we're going to see both of these things today, and I'm really excited to talk about both of these concepts because finally we get to talk about Nen. I have not talked about this power system in a little minute, but the way we're going to talk about it is quite different. As we have previously discussed, we are going to talk about it from a more so spiritual angle. And this was inspired, in my humble opinion, by other people having like spiritual analyzations to other things. Like, for example, I saw previously a spiritual analysis for the movie Sinners. I thought that was really cool, and I was like, wow, what else can I connect spirituality to, essentially? Or what's something that has like something that is based in like religion or spirituality that maybe other people didn't see the connection, but I clearly do. And I was like, wow, Nen has a lot of spiritual elements to it, Lord and behold, or a lot of elements that connect to different forms of like spiritualities or religions. And I want to talk about that today. And I also want to talk about how that applies to Hisoka, as well as how that applies to his life later on. So we're going to do all of that today. I'm going to try my best to connect all of these pieces together. We're going to sit together. You're going to follow through with me. It's going to be a great time for everybody. Let's get started with essentially the first portion. So we're going to split this into two, but for one episode. So pretty much we're going to have one part, which is the Nen baseline and how that connects to spirituality / aura. It's interchangeable. And then we're going to have two, how that applies to Hisoka within the pre-canon manga, so within his childhood. Get ready? Let's all take a seat and let's get started. So, Hisoka might have slowly began his journey with infancy. So he has been on this path with his mother since the day he was born. And what would happen is that pretty much his nodes were opened slowly and peacefully by his mother through meditation. Everybody else throughout the show, from what I see, the characters we have throughout the show, their powers got initiated like artificially through initiation. And we're going to talk about the difference between the two in a minute. Meditation's the peaceful method. It's pretty much like blooming your powers slowly like a flower. No, interjecting the powers forcefully type shit. None of the compound V artificial type method going on. It is pretty much align the elements, align the chakras, which we will talk about, aligning it all together in a very peaceful, slow, intuitive kind of way. That's how his was open, and his was pretty much open with his mother doing most of the work during the time he was a baby, because he was born with Nen. So opening it was not hard to do to begin with. It's like you were born with it. So pat, gently, open, pat, open was his way of doing it. So, despite all the trauma we talked about with like Hisoka previously, which I do think he has, there are moments of peace. You can thank his mother to that. So at least the way that his powers are compared to other people, like even in like different universes when it comes to like their powers, where it's like a traumatic experience, Luckily, that was not the case for him because he was just genetically born with his. So we could proudly say it was not a traumatic journey with his powers. Now, exploiting said powers is a different story, but at least him finding it, he didn't really have like a finding journey per se because he was just born with his. He's a natural born Nen user. There you go. So instead of method two, initiation. So this is the difference between meditation and initiation. Meditation is exactly what you think of, where it's pretty much like the slow focus, your energy, brain, slow everything down, what you typically think of when you think of meditation. Initiation's a lot different. It is what we see with Heaven's Arena is one of the examples, but apparently the Zoldyck's method is, as per usual, a lot more torturous. It's on that compound V type shit. And pretty much with initiation, it's by forcing the aura nodes to open via influx of external aura. And how I compared this to like compound V, because it's done in a somewhat similar way, where an external force of some kind basically opens your powers up by force. It's like, yeah, it's on that compound V, but that's not the only type of show you can compare it to. There's a lot of shows where it's like, wow, that's one traumatic way to end up having superpowers. It's that kind of method. But there's also the less painful initiation method, but I would still argue that it's riskier. Apparently, a lot of like Nen users will not recommend initiation. Like, if you can, please do meditation. But at the same time, I can see why initiation's like probably the quicker method because, a lot of the times when it comes to initiation, it seems to be for people that are not born with Nen or not naturally predisposed to Nen compared to someone like a Hisoka where he's like, I was just born with that shit. So like opening it was not only not hard at all, but like fairly peaceful. So compared to all the other traumas in his life, luckily him having his powers is just not one of them. It's like he was always having that shit. It's like, oh, I was just born that way. It's like, so everything else was traumatic except for his powers. A win is a win. What can I say? Versus initiation with everybody else, where it's like, yeah, my shit got opened up artificially and it hurt. And I was like, oh, I never went through that. Like, for example, can you imagine the conversations he has with his, like, now fiance? Where it's like, how did you, like, kind of discover your powers? It's like, my parents, again, on that compound V shit, kind of just, like, forced that shit open, pretty much. It hurt like a bitch. How did yours do it? It was like, my mom pretty much just, like, gently patted me and gently harnessed my powers. Lullabies and all. That's it. Like, it's night and day. It's like, that shit's crazy. You'd be like, wait, I had to be tortured for my powers. What the fuck do you mean? There was a more peaceful way to do it. It's like, yeah, bitch, mine was the wave. I mean, my mom died and shit, but man, I'm telling you, peaceful times. I'm sorry. Like, seriously, bro, what the fuck? Peaceful times for real. So it's literally just like pat, pat, open. Pat, pat, open. That's how it all began. I'm laughing because this shit's crazy. Like, everything else in your life was painful, but when it came to his powers, it's like, oh yeah, I was vibing. Which I'm sure that's why, like, the connection for, like, him and his powers, even if, like, the Nen energy he has is kind of dark at times, I don't think for him it's, like, consistently dark. It's like, it just depends on his mood, really. I just think he's just naturally a chaotic person. That's probably why. But other than that, it's like, yeah, no, mine was fine. I'm just naturally chaotic. That's it. Which I mean, like, fair. Okay. So, like, yeah, everything else was traumatic, but it was like my powers, or at least opening up my powers, peaceful. I was vibing. My mother was like patting me down, slowly harvesting and harnessing and syncing up her body with mine. It was really peaceful. I was sleeping through that bitch. It was the wave. I'm laughing because it's like, seriously, everybody else has like some form of like traumatic story Maybe except for like going to kill, it's like it's not necessarily traumatic, but it's still initiation what they've done. It's just the less painful version. But everybody else, Crawford included, it was like I had to go through like, trials and tribulations. I essentially had to be like smacked by my teacher to open up my powers. And it's like, that's crazy, bitch. My mom just patted me to sleep and my powers were just open. I'm dying. Oh, I will never get over that. What the fuck? We're gonna move on. Anyways, all living things possess aura. So everybody has aura or life energy. And, anyways, back to what I was talking about. All living things possess aura. And all humans and all other species, some other species too, can master said aura or nen, interchangeable terms. So some excel more than others as well. So pretty much Nen masters. And I think other species, pretty much any other intelligent, sentient species. So I'm thinking elephants, dolphins, maybe dogs, cats, like any animal that has the ability to learn might also be able to learn Nen. And again, it's like imagine the cool potential of having, like, for example, a service animal that also has like Nen. I mean, dogs are already supernatural as is, so them having Nen probably would not surprise me. I'll be like, so just another supernatural ability that you guys have compared to humans. Lovely. I promise you, those itty bitty creatures are beyond human. They are just unfortunately cursed with the whole idea of death. If it weren't for them dying, I believe that they will probably be immortal demigod beings of some kind. Like, they are adorable but terrifying. Duality of a dog. I fully believe that. Slight thing about like dogs, cats, and whatever animals aside, yes. So pretty much it's not just humans that have the ability for Nen. Other animals possess Nen as well. We see this somewhat, at least for like I think the Chimera Ant arc, where we see the potential for this, or like how this kind of happened. I think we'll see a lot more of this in the Dark Continent as well. If we bump into any like Dark Continent animals, we'll probably also see how like different animals can also have an Nen as well, but it's not just people. That's what I'm trying to get at. So yeah, that is pretty much one of the basics. Also, some things that from the previous episode I didn't talk about, but I'll talk about now, is this is some of the things that like her Pacific method of teaching tends to incorporate. So I think there was a heavy emphasis of like balance, especially when it comes to like having powers in general. We'll see the whole balancing element in a minute. Respect, in a way, at least for her, and maybe certain other people. Will talk about the elements of like selective empathy later when we get to him being an adult. But there's also spiritual awareness. So this is where the intuitive clairvoyance, that kind of thing, that we definitely see a lot more with his adulthood. So that kind of, cultivating that kind of power in mind, as well as being interconnected with life. So adding on to the whole like intuitive concept, a lot of it has to be based in like intuition. That's pretty much the main thing that she was trying to cultivate within her child, and I would say she did a fairly good job with him. So it's like, you know what, Miss Morrow, you've done wonderful things for your son. For the most part, he's a little crazy, but to be fair, powerful. Crazy but powerful. What can I say? All right, we're gonna add. It's like he's a little same. It's like he's pretty powerful, and he can be balanced at times. It just depends on those times. But I bet, even as like a ghostly spiritual spirit figure, she still knows that. Where it's like, watching from above, being like, "Yep, that's my son." From the heavens, being like, "That's my son." He's gonna get his act together. Just give him a minute. He'll look crazy. But that's my baby. She knows. It's like, that's my baby. Imagine. Also, side note, but we're gonna go back to the conversation. Like, she obviously has bumped into him when he had like that moment of death, spoiler warning, for like the secession war arc, that Dark Continent arc where he was fighting like Krello and he pretty much died and he had to come back for the dead. It's like she saw him. I know she did. Like within the afterlife realm or whatever. It's like basically I'm just imagining her like knock his sense into this man, being like, "What the fuck are you Mind you, probably all in Spanish. I'm hearing the rant now. It's like, oh my god, this woman has been through it all. let us all gather around and pray for his mother. She's been through the trenches, and then she has to see her clearly young adult son in the afterlife being like, what the flying fuck? You're not supposed to be here. It's like, get back up there. What are you doing? And he's just being like, my son is in India. It's so stupid. Oh my god. I'm telling you, prayers to this woman. She's been through it all. Even in the afterlife, the job of raising your children never rests. It never stops. Let's go back. Oh my god. I'm just imagining it out. You're imagining it with me. Is the motherly rant immaculate? It's like having a motherly rant in the afterlife is fucking crazy, man. Has been through it all. Jeez Louise. Let's keep going. So similar to the concept of Nen, we're going to connect it to the concept of chakras. And pretty much what chakras also focus on is energy as well. So Nen, aura, energy, connections, harmonies, all of that stuff. So yeah, it focuses on energy too. And it also has an energy system, one in which pretty much has like different types of things. And I will link down below what that specific energy system is. But let's just talk about the word chakra to begin with. So the word chakra is derived from Sanskrit, and it means the wheel or circle of life. And pretty similar to aura, prana is another way to describe the universal energy that flows through every living thing. This is how four main principles might be aligned with chakra. So now that you know the basics, we're going to move on to how this applies to Nen/aura. And we're going to talk about like the main, what I believe is to be 4 auras to know about. First one is 10. So 10 means to envelop or shroud. This pretty much means that the Nen user must learn to keep their aura from leaking away from their body, which also aligns with awakening the third eye and the crown chakra. So this is how it aligns with the Sanskrit belief of chakra. It opens the third eye, awakens your crown, and basically what you're doing this whole time is you're learning how to keep everything within. Envelop, meaning to keep within. Shrouding, you're learning how to pretty much harness said power to begin with. And the second one, which they connect together, so you can't have one without the other, especially as a newborn. We'll get into that in a minute as to why, but Zetsu's the second one. And this pretty much means to suppress or null. It stops the flow of aura from the body altogether. So pretty much you're learning how to suppress. You're learning how to turn Nen nodes off at will. So that's what you're learning how to do. It's like how to keep powers at bay. So this is also learning how to harness it within, but now you're just stopping the flow altogether. So it's like stop it like a water valve. So by closing all their aura nodes, the user is able to halt all the flow of their aura, again, kind of like water. So open, stop, it's like a sink. Open, stop, which makes their presence much harder or even if possible to sense. So it's like an invisibility cloak too. So one or two ways it can be done is like if you use Zetsu, you could either turn like completely invisible, or number two, which like you could still be seen, but like you just won't sense that that person has powers, but they do low key. So you could use either one to like either hide your powers or just hide you. It's pretty cool. Zetsu, the ability of what it can do. And yeah, this connects with the root chakra. So that's the type of chakra that it most likely aligns with. So what I mean by essentially the first two tend to connect together, especially during infancy, is that with newborns who are born with Nen, they instinctively learn Ten and Zetsu to pretty much prevent fatigue. So in Hisoka's case, he's in that category of like, if you were born with Nen, the pat pat open blossom, that kind of has to be done to pretty much prevent like severe fatigue, I think, to like the point of like not having SIDS or sudden infant death syndrome. It's like, in order for that not to happen with a child with powers, pat pat open is pretty much the method to go. So Tenin Zetsu has to be learned. It was like you kind of have to be in sync with your child so that eventually they kind of just learn how to do that on their own. It's like syncing it together, which, by the way, a lot of the times with like newborns and moms, they kind of sync each other's bodies together. You kind of have to, considering that you've been in your mother's womb and you're just already in sync with her body in order to survive, kind of thing. The human body, I'm telling you, it's a fascinating thing. We're going to move on to number 3. So now that you know kind of the baseline, like the basics for the energies and how to harvest it, now you're going to see how that kind of gets released using first Ren. So Ren means to refine / enhance. And this pretty much focuses on outputting that energy to a large amount of aura, more so than 10. So you're now learning how to project those powers out, projecting it outwards, explosively, mind you. And this amplifies the user's physical strength. So pretty much, again, exerting your powers outwards. Also, additionally, it builds durability and provides a large pool of aura for any advanced techniques or individual skills that they decided to use, albeit at the cost of expanding said aura. So just learning how to expand your powers. That's really what it is. And this most likely aligns with the solar plexus for the chakra system. So seeing how that connects together to that. And basically why it connects with solar plexus is this is due to aligning with a show of power, which also aligns with the Nen user's self-esteem and confidence. So seeing how that kind of blends together. You then have number 4, which is Hatsu. So after you learn those 3, you then learn Hatsu. And this is the fun part. Hatsu, which is release / act, is pretty much the fun part of actually seeing what kind of powers that people have based on their personality. Or how it is technically explained, it is essentially one's personal expression using Nen. Its qualities are influenced by, but not restricted to, the Nen user's natural category. So it's one of 6, and there's 6 categories in total. I'm going to use the power of my brain because I don't have the chart right beside me. There are 6 different types. You have emitters, you have essentially conjurers, you have specialists, you have manipulators, you have enhancers, and you have transmuters. I think I listed all 6. So one of 6. Hisoka is a transmuter. That's the main category that he's in. But there's also like secondary categories. So someone can have essentially more than one. From what I've learned, there's like more than one where it's like you have your primary and then you have secondary. It's like they'll use it occasionally, but like their main thing is this. I see this with like Kurapika sometimes where it's like conjurer, but there are moments where he has like specialist like abilities. So it can flip flop, but for Ahsoka, it's like I'm pretty sure it's just transmutation, but he is a master within transmutation. So he's a prodigy with being a transmuter. That's his thing, being a transmuter. But he is a master at it. So he's a professional, you know? I'm a professional, honey. Period. Anywho, but yeah, that's the fun part. So you get to see everybody's different personalities with their powers. And also, it projects onto the world. So now you get to see how that plays out. So I think the first thing that he developed with Hatsu might have been texture surprise first. And then he probably developed things like bungee gum and just everything else kind of just like later on. So I think that was like things that happened later on. But the first thing that he essentially used was texture surprise. It might have been the very first test that he used before anything else. He was playing around, I remember the pre-canon, with like changing the water at first and seeing how the texture changes with the water and it, like this dough-like texture, which I thought was pretty fun for him. But yeah, it's just pretty much seeing how every person's powers develop based on like their personality and stuff. So that's the fun part. It aligns with your throat chakra, and also it adds on to projecting one's aura to carry out a certain function. And then the fun part is creating a special and unique paranormal ability. This is called Nen ability. So after you learn your Nen and you're able to develop it into like your own different power, you're pretty much able to further develop it with like more abilities for that specific Nen type. So that's where the fun part comes in. You get to see, like, for example, like with Killua's, he was a transmuter, but his main thing is like with electricity, for example. We saw that with like Gon and how he uses his powers as, I believe, an enhancer is what he is. And we have Lario, it's like he uses for emitters, but you know, the main thing is like he uses it for healing, which I thought is pretty cool. It's like I would never have thought like emitter healing, that ability being used for healing. So like typically when I think of healing, I do think of more so of a manipulator type. So that's pretty cool how he uses the emitter type for healing. I never would have thought to put two and two together, but Lord and behold, he does. It's like you get to see how, you know, it can bend depending on that person. It's like it doesn't have to be like stereotypically what you think of when you think of those powers. You know, it can really just change depending on who's using it. Like that's the fun part of it all. That's the great part about it. It's like, I love this power system. It's so cool. So now we're going to have a quick intermission. And then when we come back, we're going to essentially talk about how this connects to Hisoka's, you know, childhood, even when his mother passed away. So pretty much going to see how this connects to his pre-canon. So come back after the intermission. We're going to stretch. We're going to have a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to continue this conversation using manga evidence. So yeah, that's going to be fun. All right, everybody, glad you're back from intermission. Now let us continue this journey. We are now going to be using manga evidence to support our claims. So let's start with the first question that we're probably all having, or if you don't have it, I'm going to basically give that question for you to think about, which is what indicated that Hisoka's mom taught him first? So pretty much this is the question that I think a lot of people have, where it's like, okay, how do you know it was his mother? Like, what clued you in that his mom was the one that pretty much like taught him the basics? This was based on the manga page for the pre-canon 17. That's where the indication came from for me. And in page 17, this is when Meritno was like impressed with like Hisoka's cartomancy power skills, which is pretty much his card skills. So like when he showed that off to Meritno was like, wow, this kid is like a professional already. It's like, where did he learn these skills from? Like cartomancy skills, you know, the ability to wield cards in that kind of way. And then, of course, Meritno, with his curiosity, is like, so who taught you? Who taught you those skills? Who taught you that, kid? And then Hisoka pretty much answered with confidence, mind you, of course. The little sprout answered, my mother was a skillful lady. My mom did. My mom taught me a lot of the stuff that I know. My mother was a skillful lady. That sentence alone pretty much gave me the initiative to go, oh, so it was his mom. His mom taught him the basics of everything that he knows. And what he further develops with Meritno, he already learned the basics from his mother. Shout out Miss Morrow once again. She's doing the damn thing, even from beyond the grave. Her influence lives on. But that's the first sign of her influence clearly taking a huge part with Hisoka. It was page 17. That's where I got it from. So from here on then, we could pretty much use that for most of Hisoka's previous knowledge before he went to Meritno. He got it from his mommy. His mama did it. His mother, mama, madre, all of those words combined, she's the one that did it all. Shout out to his mother. So that answers our first question. The second question we then would have is, okay, what skills did Hisoka have in the pre-canon manga due to potential teachings from his mother? So, pretty much this is the whole thesis, the whole shebang-a-lang, based off of the things that I said. So adding on, the main thesis that we have is that Hisoka's mother most likely taught Hisoka, right? Certain Nen skills, without naming said techniques. So pretty much like I said before, it's like she taught him the basics. She did not name it. So it was unnamed. And it was like the very basics, the first two since infancy. And then like she showed maybe some examples, but she just didn't name any of them. And she probably used more so of the chakra system rather than the Nen system that he now later learns with Meritno. But he knows like the basics from that same like system. So it's like somewhat of a different system, but she was teaching the same techniques. Smart, low key. Shout out to her. In which that knowledge gap, again, so like pretty much putting the name to the skill, is later filled by Meritno. But he already knows like the basics from his mother. So she then could have also used a mixture of storytelling and linking. So that's the method that she used to teach said skills, in which she let Hisoka follow along, scribble some notes, and then ask some questions. So pretty much having the little one follow, do all these things with her, pretty much see how some of the things are done, and then pretty much let him figure out the rest, or let him figure out like the very basic roots of what he later uses to develop his powers. So again, nothing like advanced yet. She taught him the basics. The advanced stuff comes in later with Meritno, and I think she probably would have taught him the advanced techniques if she were still living, but she's not, so it was Meritno instead. Which, I mean, I don't think it matters per se who did it. It just kind of sucks that it was Meritno, because as we discussed in earlier episodes, he's kind of exploitative. But that goes without saying. You had to learn your powers somewhere. I guess it was with Meritno doing the rest, finishing what was unfinished. So yeah, the little tater tot was just following his mama around, gaining knowledge, gaining all this stuff. And she probably would have taught him more, but she's died. Whoopsie daisy. So she got the chance to at least teach out the basics. So before her passing, she didn't get to teach the advanced stuff, but Meritno taught him, so we're good now. There you go. That pretty much is the thesis laid down to pretty much add on to the idea that his mother taught him the basics and then Meritno finished those lessons out. So pretty much connecting the rest. The dots were there. There was just no connecting the dots yet. So it's like, I'm going to teach you how to connect the dots, kid. So that's what he did. He taught him how to connect the dots together to further develop his Nen and use it properly, but like harvesting it and harnessing it, pretty much the first steps. He did not need initiation because, like I said before, that was already done since infancy. No need to forcefully open the nodes because that was just done naturally. So like I said before, it's like everybody else has their low-key traumatic story, and then you have him, where it was like, I was just sleeping through it for real. So, he learned how to use said powers that he always had. There you go, everybody. There you go. Continuing on with this, of course, we're going to continue with one of the skills that Hisoka already is aware of is Ren. And this is shown in page 30 when Abaki asks, "What about you? Do you think you'll be able to learn how to use 10? To which Hisoka responds with, "Oh, I've already figured it out." So like I said before, with 10 and Zetsu, these are the two like baselines to later develop Ren. So if you know 10 and Zetsu, developing Ren is a no-brainer. So this might be due to Hisoka's mother calming him down, again with Ten and Zetsu, something I've already established, after opening his Nen nodes with consistent meditation, in order to prevent fatigue and later SIDS. So she literally did that so that he could stay alive. Shout out to moms. They do the damn thing. So this could all be due to the Moros being, again, natural Nen born Nen users, so they just are naturally predisposed to it anyway, so they just learn how to develop it for survival reasons. Though it appears she might not have taught him Ren, so she didn't teach him Ren, but it was easier for him to learn Ren due to the fact that Tenin Zetsu was already instilled. She gave him again the framework, She gave him the basics, the foreknowledge, whatever you want to call it, the basics to later develop Ren quicker than probably his peers. Ten Zetsu's the baseline for Ren. Keep that in your head probably for later. It will come back full circle, I promise you. It'll be knowledge used for later. But she gave the framework of Ten Zetsu so that he could easily learn Ren. It helps also that Hisoka seems to pick up fairly quickly on information. Remember, he's a gifted kid, so that also helps with things. A gifted kid already has Tenenzetsu, so learning Ren was a no-brainer, no problema. It was not a problem at all for him to learn that skill and then later develop his Nen fairly quicker than other kids might have. These are all combined. See how everything comes back full circle? Like how him being a gifted kid certainly helps with other skill sets, especially when it comes to Nen. This is how that happens. He was a gifted kid. He learns fairly quickly. He was already born with Nen. He had developed Tenenzetsu thanks to his mama, pretty much instilling that in him since infancy. Having those frameworks all together, he then learned Ren. He then learned everything else at a very quicker pace compared to his peers. It all connects together. See how it all works? It's all things. This is why we talk about the things we talked about before. It all makes sense now. There's a method to my madness, everybody. There is. Let's add on to that method. So we're going to continue with, though Hisoka might have learned / seen other divination methods, of those taught to him, water divination was just not one of them. So he did not learn water divination, or at least the kind that they use. Maybe he saw like a different kind, but the kind that, connects to Nen, he did not see. There might have been different kinds he saw around his old home, or he probably just doesn't remember, because to be fair, he was like a very young kid when that happened, and a lot of people was like, I don't remember what happened to me before the age of 10. And it's like fair. And maybe the trauma also that we talked about last time, trauma can make you forget. So there's like large brackets where it's like, I just straight up don't remember due to traumatic reasons, trauma reasons. So it's just like, yeah, that too. But it might be all of those factors, or it might just be he saw different divination methods. Water divination was just not one of them, or the type, again, that he saw was different from the one that's used for Nen. Whatever you want to use, up to audience interpretation. That's the fun part about it all. So, pretty much he asked the questions about it, and he was like, well, so how can you tell what type of Nen power do you have? That's kind of the main thing he asked, right? Because he was unaware that this is how you discover your Nen type. He was not there yet. Again, the basics only. She didn't get to that part yet. She's dead now, so Meritno has to take over. It's a whole thing. And this could be knowledge that, again, she wanted to teach him and wanted to share, but she died. Whoops. So that gap again was filled by Meritno, in which Hisoka asks him, how does one figure out what type they are? That's what he asked. There must be some sort of way, no? To which Meritno then teaches like both Abaki and Hisoka how to use water divination to figure out what kind of powers they have. But like the basics of aura they already know about, but like figuring out what type of Nen type you have and basically figuring that kind of stuff out, he learned with Meritno. But again, he already knows the framework and the basics from his mother. Framework from his mother, instilling the rest, so basically filling in the house, Meritno. Framework, blocking. There we go. Framework his mother, blocking Meritno. There you have it, everybody. The whole building of the foundation of his powers. So, in conclusion, ultimately, his mother gave him the stepping stones needed to advance his knowledge in Nen. And then this helped him develop his skill even into adulthood. Though she could not teach him everything, like everything involving Nen, because she wasn't able to. She's 6 feet under, unfortunately. She did give her child the basics that he then used to later develop his skills even into adulthood. But we saw within the pre-canon how that develops even further. He already has the framework. She already gave him the route, the map. Now it's about using that map to get to said destination. You feel me? She gave him the framework, Basically, do with this with what you will, my child. Go learn, even if I'm not here anymore. What an influence. She gave the child what he needed, which was a starting point. What a great way of showing that a mother's love lives on, even if she's not here anymore. She's not here anymore. She's not living anymore. But her influence clearly lives on through him. The journey is not over through him. It's like, this is pretty much here, I give this to the next generation type of thing. This applies to him. It's just done in a different way. And to be fair, it's a lot more peaceful method of passing things to the next generation than, say, this old ex. It's like, look, it can be done peacefully. Who would have thought? Who would have guessed? It's like, it doesn't have to be done forcefully like so many other people think it has to be done. It's like, my legacy, my legacy. It's like, relax. Your legacy can be passed on in a peaceful manner. Y'all keep forcing and wondering why your children have so many traumas and don't want to continue the family. It's like, have you ever thought that the way you're passing down the legacy is like a painful way that should not be passed down in that way? It's like, do it peacefully. Do it this way. Now, again, he does have other kinds of traumas, but luckily, I don't think it has to do, at least on his mother's end, with like the generational traumas that we typically think of. Now, I do think there are family issues within the Moros, but it's a bit more on the complex end, and I think it's mostly on his dad's side. We'll talk more about like his father in a minute, but it's like his dad's side, his dad is like, that's where most of the issues come from. I really do believe that. We're going to talk about how that's the case genetically way later on, but it's like, his dad got issues. I do feel that. It's like, he got issues. That's probably where most of it came from. Not to say that his mother is flawless. His mother probably has issues too, but it's like, compared to his dad, it's like, it's nothing. It's like comparing pepper to butter. Yeah. So that is everything. Wow, we have learned so much when it came to essentially Nen and its connections, and seeing how that might attribute to his powers and how it might attribute to his mother's learning method, which again is a lot more slower and a lot more intuitive. So that's the main two aspects that I want you to instill as far as like how he was taught, at least in the very beginning. Slow, intuitive. Obviously, Meritno's method of teaching is a lot more different, but we'll get into that when we talk about interpersonal relationships. We might have to do a comparison between the two, like his mother and Meritno. It's like the different, like child rearing, if you can call Meritno's method child rearing, or like child exploitation, as we already previously discussed. We'll elaborate on that a bit more. But yeah, just his mother, man. That's all you need to know for now. All right, so when we come back, we're going to come back and do education first. So we're going to have essentially an education series that adds on to this one. This was kind of the preemptive for what would later be the education series. And then after the education series, which that's going to be video, by the way. So when you'll see me again, you'll see my face again. It's going to be on video. So after that, we have the education series that's going to be on video. I'm going to need some time to fix that up. And then we're going to move on to the mental health section for his childhood. So that's going to be interesting, especially talking about certain things like conduct disorder. And like, we're going to talk a little bit more about his dad from a genetic perspective. And his mama too, from a genetic perspective as well. And it's going to be fun to see that kind of connection. But yeah, it's going to be good fun for like the 2 units that we're going to talk about. And then after we're done with those 2 units, we can pat ourselves in the back because the childhood unit, unit 1, is going to be over. We're going to move on to his teenhood. Finally, right? So let us all pretty much give each other a hug or, stretch out your legs and stuff. But this is the end. So I want to say goodbye for everybody for now. And then when we come back, you'll be able to see my face again. We're going to talk about the education portion. It's going to be a lot of good fun. We're going to have a lot of good talks as per usual. Then we're going to move on to mental health section, talk about the different elements with that, and then move on to teenhood. So that's going to be Unit 2. So thank you everybody for listening. Make sure to leave a like and a subscribe if you are on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, make sure to leave a like and follow on any other streaming platform that you may see this on. And I will see you guys next time.
Y lo reconozco, que vivir sin ti no puedo.